Hi, it's Susan from Worldpeacefull, and I felt inspired this morning. I was just about to walk out the door, but I felt to do this video. And I'll start it by firstly breathing in and out. Now, the meditation, all it is really a stilling of the mind so that you can become focused. So I'll just start. Breathing like this really creates a still point, and a still point is really the experience of peace. There's no thought, it's just stillness. Many people don't experience this because they're rushing around every day and they're feeling very driven by life. And of course, life itself is not driving people. It's the thoughts that people carry within them that drive them on the basis of what they believe they have to do. Now, the inspiration behind the video today was really about left wing and right wing politics. But it's also left and right wing ideology as somewhat slightly different, but the same. It's in its essence to do with contrast. There is a war that's going on in the world, and it's been going on for a long time. It is responsible for all the carnage, for industries growing up around violence. It has been driven by thoughts that believe there is an enemy. Now, people will argue very strongly and say, there is, this person did this to me, they're my enemy. What I wish to put at your feet really is the thought that there is no enemy but the thoughts in our own minds. And I know Gandhi said that when he was seeking to unite India. These were not just fanciful notions that he was speaking of. He was speaking the truth. It is our own thoughts that become the combat, become the weapon in which to harm another that we feel is threatening us. I'm a peacemaker. That means that I seek to live my life from a center point of peace. That doesn't mean I always get it right. I don't. That doesn't mean I'm always peaceful. I'm not. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm the paragon of virtue either. But what it means, it's an intention for peace. So always in conflict, I will come back and seek to resolve the conflict. Always. I will at least make one attempt to reach to the other, to stand in the center and say, I might be wrong. And the truth is, we're always wrong. Now, why do I say that? Because we cannot know the thoughts of another. We can use intelligence gathering, we can map it out, we can profile it, but the truth is we do not know that other. To really know that other, you have to come into community with that other in order to really see them. So going back to the left-right issue, I just feel to go still on this for a moment to try and clarify it better. The feeling I have in the way to convey it is I'm not left-wing, I'm human. You're not right-wing, you're human. There are two dynamics at play in the world, and these are natural dynamics. One is service to self, the other is service to other. Now, what this is the one who does service to self is always thinking about themselves. Now, we may well call that selfish, self-oriented, self-focused, whatever it is, it's fine. It is what it is. The other is service to others, where someone is always giving. They're always wanting to make that other happier in some way. Their first thought is to give, not to take. Yet we have an economic paradigm around this which teaches us all to take rather than give. And this is where a lot of the rushing around is happening, because we feel we've got to keep productive in order to have the things we think we need. It's coming from a taking type parameter. But going back to service to self and service to other, these are dynamics that are meant to be in the world that create a clashing it up. In my perspective, and certainly my insights, what I've seen is that designated as the left has typically been the service to others. There's been a compassion, there's been an outpouring, there's been an injustice, there's been a cry and hue, things have to change. Then there's the other side that would see itself as conservative, traditional, disciplined, very much the provider. It's very much the masculine in a lot of ways, and the other is very much reflective of the feminine, which are innate, natural predispositions of humankind. Now, within each human being, you have both. You may suppress one in order for another to be asserting itself. I was going to say the word dominant, but I'm ignoring that word because it's not accurate. Dominant is an intention to control. It's a whole different thing. So going back to those different sides of us, every male has the feminine and masculine in him. Every male has the conservative and the left-wing socialist, if you like, within them. The attributes that might reflect through the conservatism could be some form of judgment towards someone. It could be an adherence to this is the way we do things, the rules. We must stick to the rules. Order, feeling that sense of security through the rhythm of that routine is inherent within everyone. It just has different degrees of expression. Now, the left wing, there's a huge misunderstanding, and I know that there are those, certainly in the political realms, that look at it as Marxism. And yes, there have been very, very small groups of people who call themselves socialists. I have met a few in my travels. And yes, they can very much reflect the other side as well, and they can be quite militant in their views, and they really believe this is bad and it should come down, and so they fight against. The fighting against is not really the leftist orientation in its true essence. That tends to come from a politics that came out of great poverty, the Marxism, because of the excesses of those in authority was why that other side grew up. You can label it whatever you want, but ultimately it's coming out of grievances that were not resolved. If we want to look at the essence of it from a peacemaker perspective, that's what it is. Now, the left also has within it this conservative, sticking to the rules, discipline, all the rest of it within itself as well. But it will carries and expresses, if you like, a more social orientation, which is service to others. It's more about community. It's more about I care about these people and I feel a social responsibility to speak up. The refugees would be a case in point. It's not a left-wing doctrine. It's a human reaction to suffering. The feminine expresses this very strongly because the feminine is, if you like, geared towards nurturing. This is in the DNA, and it's to ensure the survival of the species in actual fact. It's not something to be fought against, controlled, suppressed, marginalised in order for one other side to feel itself secure. From a peacemaker perspective, in order to resolve these conflicts, people have to look into their own negative discord, their own issues. There are voices out there that I have heard that have agendas that believe in order to maintain this order from chaos, we have to control everyone. You cannot control what's natural. You can't. This is not a statement of a belief. It is coming from who we really are and who we express ourselves to be as part of our true nature. This is nature. You cannot control it. You cannot control the universe. You cannot impose upon a natural system an order and expect it to sustain. It won't. You can do it over a short period of time, and we've seen empires rise and fall because it's not sustainable. It doesn't work. It might bring a brief period of a sense of having control over something so someone feels secure. Someone feels their assets are protected. But what I can say from a peace perspective is to consider the law of attraction. What you think about, you bring about. What you resist persists. What you look at disappears. There are natural laws so that when you fight against, and it's the same with the left-right conflict that goes on where both sides are scared of the other. They push against each other and then they create the other. That's what they don't understand. It's when you step back and you relax, when you take responsibility and you look within your own self to look at the discord and grievance that sits there, that's when you will have the power to resolve or change a situation. It isn't about actually changing other people. It's always about changing yourself. If you're not happy with something, change yourself. By all means, if you see negative situations going on in the world, by all means, speak up. That's called responsibility as well. Document things if you think they're abuses. If you think people are being harmed, you have a moral responsibility to speak up. But I'm not one for condemnation, not at all, because people act out of what they know. A guy in the military acts out of his training. I can't condemn him for going to war. That's what he's taught. I may well question the premise of that, and I may well offer other pathways like conflict resolution to resolve that conflict if peace is what they choose. If it's about the projection of power as an age-old paradigm that's been going on for thousands of years, I can only say to that where it's leading our world is in a more of a destructive mode. If they have children and grandchildren, consider them. Don't worry about what I'm saying. Look into your own heart and make a decision. It's not to fear freedom in people. It's to celebrate freedom in people. When people are free, they're not fighting. We've had the modicum of what we've perceived as freedom through democracy, but in truth, it wasn't really democracy because we never really were heard, and that is true. It's not rocket science, but we're all in it together. The truth is emerging around the world through the internet, and it is. People are waking up. Now, people can seek approaches to suppress what they perceive as a threat because it's evoking the passions or the emotions. That is being human. There may well be ideas to get people to focus on things that are not feeling-based. We might want to create a world in the image of science and technology, which certainly there is a move towards. I have no problem with the use of technologies, providing we have a balance. It's not about suppressing the arts, the humanities, the things that make us happy. The things that are the reason we get up and go to work is because we're doing it for someone we love. If that is truncated, if that is excised, if that is shut down, people are not going to get up because they will lose the will to live, is the truth of it. You have to have something to live for. We are not just strictly programs, despite the popular rhetoric. Yes, we are programmed through education. Yes, our parents, our families teach us and program us to behave in certain ways. Yes, to a certain degree, there's truth in that. But over and above that is the feeling reality of humanity, which is what gives us that sense of taste, touch, connection, joy, flavor, color, music. This is what makes a black and white picture color. This is the music inherent within the clown. The true clowns in this world have been in existence since antiquity. They have come from, if you like, part of that humanity that gets suppressed, which is the one that plays, that jokes, that rolls around in the aisles laughing. It's the one that cracks a joke when everyone's quiet, and everyone just gets a sense of huge relief. The clown is the one who symbolically moves through the crowd, and actually moves through the crowd to remind everyone to lighten up. It's this seriousness, this really seriousness where there's no laughter, there's no smiling, that says you are ridiculing. You are not taking this seriously. You're depreciating something that I'm saying because I believe my thoughts very seriously. Well, that's your choice. And just because another is lighthearted does not mean that they're depreciating you. It might mean that where they are, they might be at a point in their own life where they just see the humor in life. They're relaxing about it. They don't need to prove anything anymore. Now, those who find themselves on their deathbeds, which is all of us at some point, that is when you come into real truth with yourself. That is when you're at a point of reflection. You look back over your life and you decide who you really were in that life. You got a lot of time to think about it. These are the moments of truth. Were you too hard on your children? Could you have stepped out of that situation and gone and followed your dreams? Why did you work so hard and find that you had nothing at the end? Or perhaps you worked really hard and wonderful things came out at the end. You were really glad that you persevered in your life. But who were you as a person? How will people talk about you when you're finished from this plane, this earthly plane? What do you want people to remember about you? When you think back to the things that brought you the most joy in your life, what were they? Did you make more of those moments, or did you just do what you thought others wanted? They say betrayal of self is the highest betrayal. You have to become true to who you are. You can follow movements. You can jump on bandwagons. You can be against this, that, and the other. But ultimately, we're the one human family, and we are. Ultimately, we have to come together at some point if we wish to survive on this planet. We do. These wars that have been going on for a long time, which divide us, are about evoking negativity towards people. They're not about problem solving. As a peacemaker, my life and my every breath is dedicated towards peace. I'm neither left nor right, yet I'm both. There are definite moments in my life when I've been right. There's definite moments in my life where I've been left. There are definite moments in my life where I've been more masculine, other moments where I've been more in the feminine, other moments where I've been a real go-getter, other times very quiet, very communicative, silent, singing, creating, preparing, allowing. I am many, many things, and it's infinite what I can select from. when I come from a base of freedom. I can co-create, as many in the IT industry are using these terminologies now, but I'm talking about real co-creation of what you truly, truly want. And it's not about the money. The money will never bring you happiness. Never. Yes, you might have the boat, the house. You can jump on a plane. You have very influential contacts. You might have all that. Great. But are you happy? Do you know what that really is? I'll tell you what happiness truly is. It's when you come into full alignment with who you are. That's it. You don't even have to be the clown like me. You don't have to go out into the world, travel the world, laugh on the street with thousands of people. You don't have to do that to be happy. You don't have to go on any pilgrimage to imagine that you're actually going to somewhere that's more holy than where you really are. You are the holiness you are seeking. And it comes from pure thoughts, not indoctrinating your mind with violence, with negative, with gossip, with entertainments that are taking you away from the absolute vitality of who you are and your life. True happiness is coming home to you. It's when the fighting is over, when you finally realize that the war was your own, with yourself, but you projected it onto other people, making them wrong. Because you were intolerant to that difference. Because you were adhering to beliefs that someone had taught you that were right. Yet it didn't feel good. And that's why there is somewhat of a counter movement these days, I'm feeling, is because they don't feel good about what they've done. And they're desperately trying to find ways to suppress those voices that keep bringing back to them the very things that make them not feel good. And what I would say to you as a peacemaker and someone who's been through a lot of hardship myself, you must face what you fear with love. Even if you imagine it's in someone else or some group, whatever it is, you have to face what you fear if you want to remove it. You cannot attack, remove, incarcerate, set up, demonize that other to feel good. Because you never will. Because you're a human. You're just like me. Many, many, many people have chosen denial rather than facing the truth of what's going on around them. We have to look at the control paradigms that are rising up around us, and they're there. We have to look at surveillance of the public. Is this reasonable when the majority of people are not engaging in activities that are violent, or they may well have opinions about what's going on, but they have a right? We are still, for the moment, in a democracy, certainly in my country. But I would even say to those in other countries that are not necessarily in a democratic framework where there is at least the perception that a person has a right to freedom of speech. You have to come back to what's true for you. We are in great transitional times, that's true. We are in transformational times, without doubt. There are moves to create a technological society and move us in these directions. There's great social cost there as well in respect of employment. These have to be discussed publicly. People must come together. The left and the right must come together. Just as the left hand and the right hand, they're not separate. We are the one thing, believing that we're separate from each other, but we're not. I want everyone's happiness. I want a world where we no longer fear control, we no longer fear an enemy, We no longer feel we have to protect ourselves. In my world, love is the ultimate protection, and it's not an ideal. I've traveled the world alone. I felt myself protected when I loved the people because it de-escalates the violence. People sense that you're non-threatening. If something comes to you that challenges you, know that life has brought it to you for a purpose. It is not to punish you. It is to awaken you. Can you set aside your ego, your fear, your need to defend yourself, and sit with what has been put to you, particularly if it's critical? What can you learn from this? If you're reacting to it, something within you agrees. You may well agree that you're not good enough. You may agree that you're powerless. You may agree that you're vulnerable. Note that the fear in the pit of the stomach is coming from your inner agreement with an event. The event itself is actually neutral in all cases. People will say, well, how can it be if it's an attack or something, how can that be neutral? The reality is the event has happened. When you stop and you step back and you look at the event becomes neutral. Who are you in relationship to the event becomes the reality. You are the feelings, you are the thoughts that look upon the event and decide what it means. This is what all philosophers have developed in their understanding. Questions. Why is this? What is this? What does it mean? Why is it happening? Philosophers come into deeper perspectives of human nature because they ask the questions. They don't go, I'm not going there, it's too heavy. They go, I'm going there because it's heavy. I want to know about this so I can overcome it. The limited, rigid thinking does not advance civilization. The fear of stepping outside one's box does not advance civilization. The continual persecution of minorities, the stepping aside of human rights, and I wish to make a point about human rights because it's not understood. This came to me from poetry, in actual fact. Human rights only arises when values decline. Some people say, oh, it's not human rights, let's get rid of them. They're only an impediment to what I want to do. That's service to self. Unquestioning, believing in entitlement. No, we are in community. The human rights are arising because values are declining. These are universal values like empathy, compassion, truth, love. These are in every single human being. It's not a left-wing ideology. It is a human felt perception when one is integrated within themselves. In other words, they've allowed themselves to feel life deeply. When you feel life deeply, you will never harm another. When you're truly happy because you've come into alignment with who you really are, you are not able to bully another person. It's not possible. If we want to solve all the bullying issues, happiness is the panacea. Now, people will say, well, what about the industry is dependent on all this conflict? You are a creator. You can create out of it. When you come back to who you are, no matter who you are, whether you're a soldier, whether you're a general, whether you're in high government, when you come back to who you truly are, a pathway will open up for you no matter who you are. You are not going to be on the street in poverty. I'm in poverty. I have no income, no home. I've been taken in by someone who actually suddenly believed in me. She just recognized me when she met me, this woman. She gave me a place to stay. Now, everyone's great fear is, what if I'm homeless? Well, I'm homeless and I'm telling you it's okay. You survive. I'm actually happy. Why am I happy? Because I'm doing what's true for me. Do I miss the money? No, I don't. Would it be handy? Yes, it would. I can do even more with more money. And the only reason money becomes important is because people don't necessarily do it because they're not following their true nature. They tend to program themselves on the basis of, I'll do it for money, because that's what an economic system has created. We're not doing gross national happiness where we're going, well, what's going to produce the greatest happiness for everyone? And believe me, when you go into that space, there will be enough food to feed everyone. No one will go hungry. There will be no people sitting on the street homeless. That won't exist. That's more of a function of a civilization that does not know itself, that lives in fear, that's frightened to step out, plugs itself in, ignores the social disintegration around it, blaming that other rather than understanding that there's an economic system creating that other. There's also a social system that's not supporting that other, who has the courage to step up to that person and take them in. You don't have to make them dependent. They will be so grateful to you for just giving them a shower and something to eat. There's a lot of beautiful people on the street. I've been talking to them. They're like you or me. Well, look at me, I'm like you. It's like we are projecting labels onto others. These are the belief systems that are rigid, that go, oh, well, go get a job. It's not easy to get jobs now. There's lots of criterias. If you're older like myself, I'm 54 this year, they won't employ you. Even though I'm hugely talented, I've got lots of talents. I've done a lot of things. And I'm not worried by it. I just see it is what it is. This is the world I'm in. But I'm not going to sit in judgment of someone who doesn't have a job and call them a loser. I think that's a very unkind thing to do. And perhaps the one projecting that thought is actually the loser. They lose the opportunity to show their true wealth, which is generosity and kindness. So going back full circle to the left and the right, to the masculine and the feminine, to the up and the down, to the dark and the light, because that's what these really are. These are all contrasts. Until you embrace that you perceive as other to you, you will be constantly at war. Does that bring you happiness? No, never. What is your purpose in life? To be happy. You were born to be happy. But we created a lot of things that got in the way. There is no left wing, there is no right wing. They are just human beings mixing it up. Service to self and service to other. And those two types actually are not hard and fast left or right. They actually mix. There are some on the left who would be service to self, and there'll be some on the right who are service to others, and I've met them. And vice versa. We are just believing in philosophies, ideologies that we think are going to bring us security. When we're on a planet that's denuding its resources at a rapid rate, we're possibly fishing out the oceans by 2050. We're looking at massive climate changes, human-induced and possibly solar-induced. When we're looking at continually focusing on wars in order to service profit, this is not serving humanity. This is not serving you. There has to be a transition from these types of modes that no longer serve humanity. Now, there can be a struggle, and I know there is a struggle going on, or some of those who are in high positions of influence can sit back, look into your own mirror, into your own eyes, and decide the future you actually really want for your children and grandchildren. Do you want them to be in control paradigms where everything they do is recorded, profiled, where they are just prosumers or consumers, where their only value is based on economics? What if they're an artist? What are you going to do then? What if they're a mother? You know? What if they're a clown and that's what they love? Do we force them all into the same box? Or do we step back and say, you know what? I'm going to face what I fear in this life. And I'm going to start with myself and be the example. And that's what I'm doing in my life too. I'm not sitting here as holier than thou. I've had to do a lot of work on looking at my aspects. In psychology, you'd call it the shadow aspects. These are the negative aspects in the human psyche that seek to take control because they're frightened. The shadow is the ego. It's the small self that feels insecure. It's inherent within every single human being. And it's not to put that person down because they feel frightened. It's a human characteristic. But you've got to feel that fear in order to heal what has been hurt. You can't keep projecting onto the world or believe that the world is in your image. It's not. Because you're not dialoguing with lots of different people. You're only staying in silos of those who agree with you, and they could be within your industry, within your profession. You're not moving around the world and really getting to see wide ranges of people. I've done that myself. I went to 20 countries. I've had a look around. I travelled my own country alone. Set up a tent. I got chatting to people in caravan parks. I was a market analyst. I used to interview people. I've communicated with lots and lots of people over my life. And what I've seen is great diversity that you cannot contain into sameness or conformity. Conformity or non-conformity is not necessarily rebellion. It just means difference. Can we not only use words like tolerance, but can we find within ourselves an acceptance of that difference? Because until you do, the world will be wasting a lot of energy embroiled within conflicts rather than dealing with the real issues on the planet of how to feed the hungry in Africa and various other parts, the growing poverty within urban centres. People talking mega cities. Is that going to solve the problem when more and more people are coming into a city and many people are lonely within cities because their community is broken down? Now, for some, they may not care about that. They want them disconnected. They just want them working. Is that the brave new world we want? Or are we going to really seriously sit down and socially plan for a future that benefits everybody for a win-win? It need not be a win-lose. So I will leave that with you to contemplate. That is my opinion and my perspective that I've felt to share out of a sense of inspiration. Do with it what you will. We're all in this together. And I love everybody. I don't care who they are. I don't care whether you're right or left. I love you as you are because you're making me grow as a person. And for that, I'm very, very grateful. And I believe we will have an incredible future coming. Take care and have a beautiful day. Bye.